guys. Welcome to our May edition of Scripting the Book. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We have a guest coming to join us, Desiree M Ortega, to join us for Crazy Rich Asians. So we're going to talk about the book, the movie, and then talk about them both today. But first, we're going to let my our guest co-host introduce herself, and then I will let my regular co-hosts Ben and Natalie introduce themselves. So Desiree, go ahead, take it away.
Hello, friends. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm Desiree M Ortega. You can find me over on YouTube at Coffee Reading Writing. I post weekly videos there. I stream live on Mondays there. And you can also find me on Twitch, where I stream Tuesday through Saturdays. Desiree M Ortega, twitch.tv Desiree M Ortega. So yeah, that is me.
Awesome. And I am Ben Pick, also known as Writing to Write on YouTube. And I am, yes, as Richard posted, I am coming from a undisclosed remote location. I'm just away for the weekend, so happy to be here and talk about Crazy Rich Asians.
Glad you could come join us. I am also streaming from a new location and will be disclosed as my new house. Still setting up. Yes, okay, our house, as my son said. But I am Natalie Locke. You can find me at natalielockeBooks.com, which will link to all the social media that you want to find me or avoid me on. So, yeah, I'm just really excited to keep going with the script in the book, because this is what helps me read. Otherwise, I have a feeling I wouldn't.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same. Some months I'm like on a reading roll and I'm just like reading book after book after book. So my scripting the book is just in there. Months like this month where I'm super busy, the TBR goes out the window, but I'm like, I got to get to my scripting. So I at least have that down. But I did get 2 books read this, which is sad. This is like my worst month of reading in a long time. But I've been super, super busy. So I'm glad that I've got this to keep me on track. So at least every month I'm gonna get at least 1 book read. And at least 1 movie watched. So there's that too. I am neither Vixen of Fiction. You are here on my channel. I host this fun show. I also host Author Tubers React, which we will be doing on Saturday, where Des is one of my regular co-hosts for that. And we just talk about all of the crazy shenanigans that go on in the writing and bookish community. And other than that, I host every Tuesday night here on YouTube. We do writing sprints, and then I host on Twitch for the lunch hour during the week. So you can come hang out with me on Twitch. And that is me. I'm excited to get into this. So buckle down for the next hour. I always say hour, and do we ever keep it under an hour? I think we may have once kept it right at an hour.
That might have been when it was you and I. Spencer, can you please turn that down?
When we did Bullet Train, no, we went long.
Oh, we did.
We're like, it's just the 2 of us. This is gonna
Yeah, it's fine. And then we're like, oh, but there's this, and then this. Oh, and I forgot about this.
Yeah, so that's us. Perhaps we'll keep it to an hour. We'll see how this goes. Hello, Cool Gamer, and Felicia is here, and of course, Richard. Hello, with the commentary. And yes, congrats to Natalie. Very punny.
We're not doing it. The amount of debt I just assumed is not funny.
No, I can imagine. Ooh, this is not the mark.
But this is like the house we walked into. We were like, this is it. Like it was house number 16 in 2 days. We were like back to back and chose this house. And yeah, it's. Oh, you like this house? Good.
Oh, it's good.
The only room that's like 100% good, nothing else really needs to be changed in it, is his room, because I've been working on it since we moved in. Everything else, I'm like, oh, there's still this project and that project. So
that's good.
I got a notes list, just like my TBR list. There's the to be fixed list and to buy list, and my poor husband is out shopping for that right now. I was like,
Aw.
I need these boxes out of here, please. I need the clutter gone. Otherwise, my attitude will suffer more so than
Yes.
usual.
I remember that feeling. I'm like, if I never have to move again, I will be happy.
Mm.
We'll see how long we can stay here. All right. Are you guys ready to dive right in? All right. Let's start with, did we have anybody DNF? And if you did DNF, why? Any DNFers? All right. Excellent.
Ooh.
Wait a minute.
Some slow to
Wait a
Desiree,
minute.
you first.
Desiree?
Why? I have to say why.
You can give us just a brief, and then we'll talk about the book. We can get more into it.
Like, how far did you get into it?
Yeah, how far?
Out of the 566 pages, I got like past 300.
Okay.
Oh.
But I
There were 500
skimmed
pages?
on the ebook at least.
Mm.
On
Yeah.
the ebook, there's 566. Notice I know the exact count because I was really pushing to get those 566. I'll just say that I skimmed a lot of it because it was just not what I expected going in. There's so much I could say, but I'll wait to say it.
All right. All right. Okay. So, and Natalie, you wanted
Yeah.
to?
So I DNF'd, but this was my second time reading it. And the only reason I DNF'd is because of time. If I had the audiobook, I would have been listening to it in the car. I would have got it done. But I didn't have an audiobook option. I didn't want to pay for it through Audible either. But I did finish it, and the entire series, by the way, like a few years ago, and I had the audiobook version. But this time it was I didn't have time. Like reading is hard to like actually sit down, do nothing but hold the book. Audiobook is kind of like where my life is at right now.
Yes. And I'm a hybrid reader, partly for that reason. Partly one, because I'm dyslexic. That can't even say the word. I'm dyslexic, so it makes it hard to read for long periods of time, because the longer I read, the more the words start to get jumbled. So hybrid reading helps me on that. And hybrid reading also, number 2, helps me to be able to do other things, because I have 4 kids. I'm a mom and all that stuff. Multitasking and being able to absorb what's happening while multitasking is not a problem for me. I can literally hear something and be doing stuff and miss it and be like, wait, pause myself for a minute, and my mind can go back and like, that's what was said. Because sometimes I don't necessarily register it, but because I heard it, I can like back up. Because you do that with kids all the time. You're like,
replay the sounds until
you've tuned them out. Exactly. You've tuned those kids out. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, something just happened. Mine goes back. Oh, that's a problem. Let's go fix
I will say, for me, this was one of my busiest months. And if I feel like if I had the audiobook, there were times that I wish I had the audiobook. I feel like I could have probably gone through it fully if I had the audiobook. But because it was also such a busy month for me to really like, for reasons of it was harder to get through.
Mm-hmm. All right. So now that we know where we are, and Ben, you read it through, no problems.
I do not DNF books, but so I will suffer through them no matter how much I dislike them.
Normally I do too. Oh, yeah.
I try not to DNF. Like it has to be a lot for me to actually be like, no, I'm done. Like,
so I DNF'd Artemis Fowl, but I think it's the deadline of the show that makes us like DNF it. But I finished it, Artemis Fowl.
Yeah.
Just because I was like determined. I did not finish Dune though. That stayed DNF.
That was a total DNF.
Yeah. You and Richard have a lot in common.
Yeah.
Yep. Right there. I do not DNF, but I will suffer them no matter how much I dislike them. We're gonna have the Dune people coming for us. And I admire those who can multitask with the audiobook. I cannot. Yes. So there are times when I do need, especially when characters are being introduced, if I don't have the book on me, when so that I can actually register who is this person and why are they important. There are times when I do need to pause, but it's not hard to just stop and be like, okay, got it, and then go back to what I'm doing. Again, I think that that's a necessity that comes when you have a lot of kids. It's like something you have to be able to do. So not like I deliberately honed this skill. It's just something that just happened. Let's go into our next thing. Anybody a dislike on the book, like total dislike? It's a no for you.
Yeah, I kind of hinted at that one, but this was one I had to power through. And I did have an advantage in that I rented this from the library as the audiobook, so I was able to do this while walking my dog.
Oh,
nice.
okay. Awesome. And who is a neutral on it?
I would say neutral, yeah.
Yeah. And without going into much detail, I'm a neutral because the parts, especially as it got to the latter half of the book, there were some parts that were detailed in a way, and I don't want to give too much away about the movie, that I'm like, ooh, this is actually more interesting. So, and which kind of surprised me. But then there were other parts where I was like, either the language or just like the crassness and just other things where I was just like, I do not like this. So balancing the things I really did not like with the things that I liked and thought were really cool. And you know me, the more details, I'm like, ooh, that's a juicy tidbit that I didn't get in, in the movie. So that is where the like and the dislike merged. And there were a couple things that I actually did love, and we'll get to the things that I'm like, oh, that was really good, or that kind of spiced things up in a way that I was like, But again, most of that came much later. So if I'd have DNF'd, I'd have been like, well, I would never. There are things you would never have known. So so that's why I'm at a neutral. And so, Natalie liked it. And why are we here at the like? What landed us here?
What turned you off is what I liked. I like the pettiness, the saying one thing, but they were totally thinking something different. I like that stuff. And I will say the audio book was better because in the actual book, what was difficult was I didn't get the definitions of the lines of the little words until the very end of the chapter. Whereas in the audio book, it's like, oh, by the way, this is a slang term for blah, blah, blah. The moment they said it. And so I think because I was exposed to the audiobook first, I liked it. And then I got the whole series, like I said. It's because it's like Crazy Rich Asians, then it's Crazy Rich Girlfriend or something. And sorry. And then like another one of rich family or China girl or something. I forget what the whole series, but I read them all.
Yeah. And so nobody quite hit the love for the book.
I would say I'd be like to love and everything.
Like to love.
Like, which actually I think the only book that I ever loved was probably Princess Bride out of everything we've.
Yes, that was.
Yeah.
Princess Bride.
And Good Omens. Good Omens was really good too.
Oh yeah, that was a good one for me too.
Yeah, those were. I think those are my loves. If we're talking chain, so like to love is actually pretty high for me.
That's good. That's good. And like I said, there were a couple of parts that I'm like, oh, I love that they did this, but it wasn't enough to yank it out of the neutral, unfortunately. So let's get into our thoughts on the book, Crazy Rich Asians. There will be some spoilers, even though we will try not to like ruin it for anyone who hasn't read it, because it is quite. We'll say if you've seen the movie, only there are some significant differences, but we are going to get into it. So if we slip out a big spoiler, so sorry, but it's here. There will be some spoilers. So thoughts on the book, and who wants to go first? Because I don't mind. I'll go first. But
I'll kick it off.
All right, go for it.
I still don't have the family down. Like it is so confusing on who's related to who, and I think that's probably what keeps it from love or whatever. It's so difficult to keep track of people. Like, it's just massive.
Yes.
And they almost go to POV with it, but I actually kind of like that part and I think the family is like the biggest catch that we have.
Yeah.
Next.
I will agree with you on that. When I started the book and the audiobook, I literally was like, were there this many people? Who is this? Who is this? And like feeling like I just needed to jot down names. And then I'm like, and I kept catching myself asking myself if I saw this in the movie. But we'll talk about that later. Just with the people that we meet. Because I'm like, who is this? Who is that person? And just literally trying to keep them straight in the beginning, especially even when I had intended to only be doing audio, I kept finding myself grabbing the book just so I could make sure I'm getting this person. I was like, that's a lot. So that was like, and I'm a big fantasy sci-fi person where you get lots of characters. And I think maybe because it is a contemporary, it felt like a lot of characters. I was like, holy moly. But I guess it also made sense, for the story. But I really was like struggling through trying to figure out who all these people were. It felt like a lot.
And that's the downside of the book, because you don't have faces. And if it's the audiobook, you at least have a voice to go off of. But reading the book, it's still, you just got a name. And I will say there wasn't much description of the characters, like their features and stuff.
Not till you get to like Michael, and then the parts where they're describing. I feel like Michael probably got a lot of description in the book. Because of the way that
Astrid got a little bit, but it was general. Like
she's
oh,
just
she's
absolutely
so
beautiful.
pretty.
Yeah.
And so you just got to picture whatever's pretty to you.
Yeah.
So you have the pants scenario here.
Yeah. How about you guys, Ben and Des? What were your initial thoughts on the book?
Do you want to take this one?
Okay. Okay, I will say that when it first started, we're not talking about the movie, but it is interesting because I did see the movie way before I read the book. So there is that in your mind when you are reading a book that you've already seen the book adaptation of. So I found it, I was intrigued in the beginning, seeing that I didn't realize that it was third POV. And so I wasn't prepared. I was like, okay, we're getting into the minds of multiple characters here. And so it was interesting seeing in the very beginning just the racist nature of what was going on, and actually seeing it from the point of the racist view. Yes. And like, I was not prepared for that. And I found that very interesting. So I was like, okay, we're going there. Let's see what this is about. But then we went into way too many people's heads. Like, to the point that even two random girls at a cafe, we jumped to their POV, third person limited mentality. And I was like, I don't care. I mean, I get it. I get what they were trying to do about the culture of the gossiping and how it feels the whole like how the train works when it comes to like everyone figuring who out and learning the news about so and so. I get that that's what they were going for, but it was, for me personally, just too many voices, too many random people, too many, just, there was constantly like someone new we were getting introduced to. And like you guys were saying, there wasn't very detailed descriptions of who's who. So we're just bouncing a lot throughout the book. Many, until like later on when we get to like part 3, that now they start focusing a little bit more. But before that, it was like everyone's mind.
And I'm like, is this person going to be important? Do I need to remember them? Like, there are certain people, again, if you saw the movie first, there are certain people or they're going to be important later on. But of all of these other people, I'm like, are they important? Am I going to see this person later? Let me jot their name down, or jot down whatever they tell us about this person just in case. And a lot of times, no, I'm like, that was a lot of people. I did find that very first scene, the way that the book opened up with them walking through the rain, the detail of, I mean, I was fine with that. It kind of went on a little bit long, the back and forth, but I got it. They were really emphasizing that these people were Asians. It was 1985, I believe, in the book, and what they had to deal with. So I did appreciate that scene in the book, but then, like you said, right after that, it was just like this, and I was like, oh, this is a lot. Where's my book so I can try to keep people straight at this point? Um, and I think when I really got annoyed, which I knew that this would probably annoy me, was not so much the cattiness of the girls and whatnot, because I kind of expect that. If you have seen Gossip Girl or read those types of books when you were a kid, where you've got the group of the rich, spoiled girls and guys, the way that they treat other people, you kind of expect that. And so that wasn't so bad, but it was some of the language that they were using, especially at the bachelor party. And then there's an actual dog fight. I'm like, I'm so grossed out. I don't want to read this anymore. Like, at least this section. But it was nice to see that the characters that you do like, because then at this point you end up disliking so many characters. You're like, I don't like you. I don't like you. I don't like you. You're just rich, entitled, spoiled. You're horrible. But the two characters that you're hoping that you do like, Nick and Colin, and one other character, they're like, we don't like this, we're out. We're gonna bounce. This is not the kind of party we want to be at, well, especially when they're at the dog fight. And that was the part that just like, you know, and because I kind of expect that they're gonna use like brash and derogatory language. They're a group of guys, I guess, at a bachelor party. So that's gonna happen. So I'm like, as much as I don't like that, I'm just gonna read through this part and get it over with. You know, it's a bachelor party. Let it go. But the dog fight, I was like, this is a bridge too far. I don't want to read this anymore. It's so terrible. Like,
I totally skimmed that part.
Yeah.
Like, because for me, it was the fact that the people I cared about, I feel like were the least on the page. Like, and again, this could have been at fault for the fact that I saw the film before seeing. So I was expecting to have more focus on certain characters, and it was just not the focus. There was so many more people randomly involved. And I was like, I just want to get to the parts of the people I really wanted to like get in their head and figure out, like, see what's going on from their perspective. And it just felt so far and few between for me personally.
Yeah, I like some of the couples. I was like, let me write down this couple. I mean, some of their stories did end up being interesting, and some of their stories did not. Because I had to take notes again because there were so many characters. I was like, I'm literally going to start mixing people up at this point. So like Amanda, we meet Amanda in the book, and then Amanda is Nick's ex, and there's this whole storyline about how everybody's plotting to get Nick away from Rachel to get him to go back with Amanda. Amanda's one of their people. So you see all of this almost this classism to extreme levels, because they're all the same people. Well, technically we're all the same people, but even within their ethnicity and their the region where they come from, you know, that it's so parsed out that it's you and then there's us, and these people we're talking about other rich people. Like, they were looking down on other rich people. I think it was it
Picklin.
Picklin.
Yeah, old money and new money.
Yeah, the old money and new money. So there's old money and new money, and then there's not enough money. There was one character, and I'm trying to look to really quick to see who it was. It wasn't Sophie. Look, that's how many characters. Isabel. Oh my gosh. So there's this character, Isabel, and she's in love with Simon, but Simon only makes $600,000 to $800,000 a year. That's not going to be rich enough. And so her friends are running down, you're going to need this size of house. And when you have kids, they got to go to this school. His $600,000, it'll be so long before he's actually made his own millions. And then you can't live off of that.
$1 million per room, bedroom, needing at least 3 bedrooms. I remember that part. I was like, what?
And I'm just like, for most of our standards, that's still rich. And even, and I think about a lot of rich people in America, if they see people upcoming, they kind of like will take them in and, they help them out and just kind of like, let me do you a favor. Let me hook you up with this person. But they were like, no, if you haven't met our class, you're down here. You have to already be in the class to be accepted. Mm-hmm. And even then, look at Pequin's family, the ghosts. Absolutely not. And it's just like, oh man. So not only do you could like I think he's old enough money, the Simon guy, that if he had just already been a multimillionaire, and we're talking multis, they were looking billions. They wanted him to be a billionaire. Mm-hmm. He would already have to be there financially. So even class-wise, he wasn't enough because even though he had the class, he didn't have enough.
I always wondered that because it's like, it's twofold. It's not just the money needs to speak, but like your breeding or something, which is why the new money, though I feel like new money could still be just as classy. They just depicted Pequin family to be like showy and not in the same like expression of as the I forgot all their names, but the old money family.
Yeah, the generational wealth families.
The Youngs and the rest of the Youngs and all of the other ones. So it's like there's so much separation within the separation. Even with Eleanor is Nick's mother, and the way that she felt like she wasn't even good enough. And in the book, we get this with Michael, who is married to Astrid. Like they're not good enough, and they're always constantly reminded by the ones who are billionaires that they're not billionaires, even if they're in the class, even if you're in the right class.
Sometimes it's done blatantly, and then other times it's like no, I didn't mean it that way. If you took it that way, I'm sorry, but this is what I meant. Like, and it's like, no, you meant it that way. We know what your tone was. Like that Gossip Girl stuff we were talking about.
And you all touched on the 3 things I didn't like about this, or the reason why I didn't like that. So first of all, you have the fact that every single conversation in this book, there was one conversation that didn't involve money or bloodline, which is the way the book tells it, just money through family. And so there's one conversation, and that one conversation is followed after the bachelor party. Like it took a gratuitous amount of drugs, dog fighting, and other illegal activities to get to the one moment which isn't about money. And it's not even between Nick and Rachel, it's between Nick and Colin.
I love that. I love that too.
Right.
But that was it. You're right.
And so what else is there? So there's also blatant racism, classism, all the other isms, even among the characters that we are supposed to care for and that we're supposed to like, who at the end of the book are the ones who end up with their happy endings. And in fact, one of the reasons why a character got a happy ending is because of an illegal manipulation of the world economy. I don't want to go into spoilers, but they manipulate the world economy so that person is now raised up to be rich enough to get there. And then third, at no point in the book did I actually care about Nick and Rachel as a couple, because even the book like keeps them apart, and the entire thing is trying to like get them together, and there's all these barriers in the way. But I mean, they're. I don't want to go to spoilers for how this thing goes through, but like, there's a fine line. This is a line that my wife gave me, but there's a fine line between a creepy stalker and a romantic, and it has a lot to do with being a hot billionaire. Like, the end result of this book is the exact same thing that a stalker would do.
Yep. Very much so. It really is. There were a couple of parts in the book where I was just like, oh no. Even with Astrid and Michael, just like the daydreams that she was having about him before they got married. I was like, oh, is this the kind? Okay. I mean, I understand Michael, that you think he's hot, but yikes. And I did like what they eventually do with the story for Michael. The as far as his reasoning for wanting to get out, like he fakes an affair. So,
yeah, but he needs to go through so many loops that are completely unreasonable. Like, if she didn't check the phone at that one moment, nothing would have happened.
Yeah. So was he just like literally like trying deliberately to leave his phone all over the place, hoping that she would find it? And
I can only assume he has some kind of bot set up to like text him at 11 o'clock at night.
Right. Genius. Yeah.
Because in the so he would have needed to predict exactly how long they were being intimate together and the exact moment when he's in the shower for that like 10-minute window to have a text come in that she would then accidentally mistake her phone for his. Like, the entire scenario for it to play out as it did is just completely absurd.
It is.
Unless he's doing that repeatedly, like multiple nights in a row or something.
Yeah. I like that he wasn't actually having an affair, but yeah, it was just so ridiculous. I'm like, dude, just tell her how you feel and see if you can fix this, because this is a lot, dude. This is a lot.
Yeah,
you're doing too much.
I mean, everything about the book is just over the top.
Yes.
It's like the boy who cried wolf situation, you know, like, oh, look, I'm having an affair, and then it's like, no, really, no, there's not one, and stuff. And I'm like, that's the situation of those kids, or usually as kids, or even the adults that are not emotionally intelligent enough to, like, they don't feel love, so they do something extreme to see who loves them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it made me think of, like, I'm testing you. And it's like, love shouldn't be tested. And everything that makes it makes the person feel like they're not loving, like, it's bad. Okay, it becomes toxic if you're testing someone's love.
Again, almost all of the characters, even the ones the book wants us to like, are displaying toxic behaviors.
Yes,
which makes them unlikable.
Yeah, the fact that Nick, there's no way I understand she's from New York and you think she's a tough girl and she can handle anything, but there is no way you don't tell her that you're part of a society that's so elite that nobody knows anything about you until you get married, and your weddings are like kings and queens getting married, or prince and princesses getting married.
Hadn't they been dating for 2 years?
Yes. If she has been in his apartment, he is a professor in his 30s. Like, she should just go in there and be like, oh, he doesn't have roommates. He has to have money from somewhere else, because there's no way he can afford a 3-bedroom apartment in New York. Like, just open up his closet at any point and just see, oh, there's a bunch of really good suits in here. Like, everything about, like, both her and him display such naivety and lack of human emotion that it's just it's astounding to me.
I will say it was interesting, the dialogue between them as well. As a romance writer, first of all, like, that was also why I was frustrated, because I'm like, I'm here for romance. I'm thinking that's what I'm getting, and there was none of that happening. The two characters, like, there's no chemistry, communication. There's you're not making me care about them.
Well, first off, the no communication is a
absolutely
like
100%
trope of all, like,
this is true.
There's always the no communication.
There's a miscommunication is perfectly fine when they aren't communicating at all.
The whole thing practically, and all I'm getting are like these little tidbit moments. And their dialogue, it was kind of very flat. in a way. Like it, I get, because I totally get the stigma with romances and things like that. I get that there is one, but I was really underwhelmed by the times we finally do get with that, like get them together. Their conversations were just very, just, and I was very disappointed by that.
Yeah, up until the latter parts, I was like, dude, you sure you want to marry her? Because this is just kind of like.
And that seemed like it came out of nowhere. Like all of a sudden he's, because he insisted forever that it was like, no, this is just, I just want to go like spend the summer. We're just spending the summer. We're just spending the summer. Oh,
We were
maybe
in
I
his
do wanna
head
marry
too,
her.
and even in his head, he's
Yeah.
like, "Well, I don't really know what we're going to do in the future, or this, that, and the other." And then he's like, "Oh, I'm at a wedding. We should get married."
Yeah.
Yeah, he like looks at her, he sees her sitting there, and all of a sudden it's like, this is it. Yes. Yes.
The wedding.
Now.
As if 2 years you didn't know.
So there were two incredibly tactless things that happened at that wedding. The first one is him standing up at the whatever it's called. He's up with the best man. He's up with the groom, and he mouths the word "I love you" for the first time, I think, right? For the first time, he mouths "I love you" to his girlfriend in the middle of like everyone. So it's not an intimate moment. She whatever. And then the other thing is that somebody else got engaged at the wedding. Like that just threw me off too, because I'm like, wow, these people are just terrible.
That reminds me of a meme that went around, and it says, if you're going to get engaged at my wedding, I'm going to die at your funeral.
And it's fine. Like, I've been to weddings where people have proposed, but they always talk to the bride about it first.
Bride and
like,
groom, they knew.
always planned.
There was a connection, and like, yeah, it was, yeah, no, completely agree. Like, it happens, but it was just, it's a communication thing that seems to be a problem. It's just so funny talking with y'all. I'm seeing all these errors and I'm like, oh yeah. Whereas when I first went through it, I just got sucked into the world. I accepted everything the author gave me and there was no questions asked. Like, I'm the most easily abducted reader ever.
I love that.
Yeah.
There was, oh my gosh, there was another thing that I thought was just crazy that totally just slipped my mind. But what was it about?
The fact that the only reason why they end up well, I don't want to say that because that's a spoiler. But yeah.
Oh man. What was it?
Okay, so these are the overall thoughts for the book. Do we need to go into the movie now for the overall thoughts?
Yeah, are you guys ready? We'll do the dislike. I know that whatever it is going to come back to me because I kept saying, oh, I need to make a note of this, and I didn't. And I'm like, that thing that comes to you and you're just like, oh, that really got under my skin. Oh, I know what it was. It was when the mom, Eleanor, is trying to get the information on Rachel. And this guy's got the information and he's trying to get some money, right? These people have billions of dollars. And this shows up more than once in the book. They have billions of dollars. And he's got really good information that can ruin Rachel's life or at least her prospects of getting married into this family. And she's like, I'm not going to give you more than $10,000 for this information. I'm like, and she literally says it's because they're not going to get, we're rich. They're not. We're not going to even give them a crumb. He's done all this investigative work. And she's like, he'll be back. Cause he's like, I want at least like 20,000 for this. And she's like, no. And he's like, he's trying to negotiate down and she's not budging. And she's like, well, fine. I don't need this information.
That's a part of the culture.
That's what I was going to,
It's a haggle culture.
Mm-hmm.
And, but the reason the rich, even in America, like the people who've worked for their money, they still live and haggle and stuff like they're poor, as if they there was a saying that I heard once that if you don't count your pennies, the dollars won't follow. And I just found that very poignant and such. So but I took it as part of the culture, and And
Yeah,
it's,
the haggling I thought was fine. It's that she wouldn't move. She knew he was going to come all the way down to her number, and then she said
Yeah,
it's because she doesn't want him making $1 off of them. And I'm just like, you could have haggled with him. You could have met him halfway. She's like, nope.
some of those people also, there's the hard negotiators. They're like, here's my line, and I'm not going to cross it. And they come out with the line. They don't do the negotiating where you go a little bit this way so that you can get down to the line.
Moving to that middle.
So like in that negotiation, she should have said 5,000, and then he goes, no, 20, and she goes, okay, fine, 7.
Then it would have felt
And
like
he goes, no, 15. She goes, all right, fine, 10. That would have been the proper negotiating tactic. Sorry, this is my work that's coming out here. I do negotiation, but that would have been the proper negotiation tactic, where she starts lower than what her limit was.
Yeah. And
and then it all goes down to value. Like the people who have like a baseball card that was their dad's and or passed down and everything, it had so much sentimental value, which is harder to convey into dollar figures when you're trying to sell it to somebody. So it's in this situation, she thought it was only worth 10,000. Whereas and the guy who put the work and effort thought it was worth 20.
Yeah. And here's the thing that and this is just me, if I was a negotiator, I would have been like, fine, I'll just hold on to this until your son's walking down the aisle and I'll sell it to someone else.
Ooh,
for a
yeah.
good,
Write that book.
And then
He is the negotiator right there.
Yeah. And then it said, and then I won't sell it for less than $100,000 because that's how good this is.
Ooh, nice.
Because it's literally because it's so much.
I can't remember. Was this the first time she used this person, or like they approached her or something? Because if they had
It
a
was
rapport,
through like I thought it was through a mutual acquaintance or something like that. Somebody
if
that they
they had a rapport and she knew good material and trusted this person's word, that would play in a factor. But this was the first time be like, nah, I don't know you like that. I don't know your definition of good versus my definition of good.
That's where you give her a little taste. Like for 10, I'll give you just a taste, but I'm telling you, it's a whole lot more. And it was in the book. It is a whole lot more when you get down to what was going on with Rachel's family. It's like, whoa. So the severity,
and it was so heartbreaking though.
It really was.
Just because not everyone knew, trying not to spoiler, but not everyone knew the details and who was involved of it. And that to me is the heartbreaking part, is that those directly involved did not know.
Even the detective didn't end up with all the details.
True. And actually,
because you couldn't know.
By the way, it plays a factor in future books.
Yes. So if you haven't read the book, I'm not going to spoil what that detail is. Des, if you want to know afterwards, I don't know if you got that far, I'll tell you after.
No, like
but there is a big plot that revolves around when we find out the truth about Rachel's family background. If you've seen the movie, I'm just going to say that there's a bigger story there.
Yes, it's much more details.
And it's heartbreaking.
Oh wow.
So that was worth struggling through.
That was the book.
That's one of the ones that like it wasn't enough to push it into the like, but that was one of the things I really liked, that we just got this really in-depth story about Rachel's family and her history, versus we've been hearing so much about these spoiled rich people. It was just like, oh.
I don't know. Maybe I could believe it because a little bit about me. I went to a private school. But I was one of the people, I found out the reason I was able to go is because my parents had my grandparents pay for some of it. So I knew my parents weren't rich, but that like really solidified it after I graduated of how I was able to attend. And the public school, there was very, very bad issues and stuff. So it was like my parents' only choice for safety measures and such. But back to the point. There was people who did not struggle at that school, and the back and forth gossip girl type stuff. It was that, I think maybe that's why it was like being able to look behind the curtain of this world that I never was a part of.
Yeah. And another part to deal with that, and what I was talking about with how they are with their money versus how everybody else is. There's a part in the book where they're talking about the designer handbags and how they will not wait. A lot of times, sometimes they do, but a lot of times when they just want a handbag, they will get the knockoff or the fake real. And she says it, and they were like, let them pay for it. Because we're so rich that nobody would believe that we have the knockoff. And she tells about how, because if you are new money or something like that, you don't want the knockoff. You want to do everything to prove that this is the real thing. You paid $10,000 for this handbag, not $1,000 for this handbag. So you're going to make sure you have the real thing. And what they would do is they would go to one of the side shops and get the leftovers. So they're like the leftovers of the real thing, say Gucci or Armani or whoever. They order 10,000, but the shop has enough to make 12,000. The extra 2,000, they can make the fakes, but they're made in the same shop exactly the same way. And that's what they were buying for way less. So they're just keeping all their money while new money or people who are trying to come up are literally spending all their money. And I just thought that was a fascinating inside look on
Yeah, I give credit to
how
the
it
author
works.
to have this like full like black market mindset of how things are done.
And they say that's how the rich remain rich,
Yes.
because that's how they live. They like want to keep and hold, and that's how
Yeah,
they remain rich.
they penny pinch like we were talking about with
Mhm.
Eleanor haggling and stuff and not
Yeah.
budging.
And their kids live with them until they get married, or the kids live in one of their properties until
Mm.
the kids have enough money to, because now you're living in mom and dad or grandma or grandpa's property. You're able to save all your $600,000. You're able to save all of your money and then buy all your own properties.
Mm.
And I'm just like, generational wealth, this is how it is. And yet here we're like, as soon as you turn 18, you're out.
Well, not Hispanic. Hispanics, it's the other way. Hispanics are very much about keeping, especially the females more than the males usually,
Yeah.
keeping them until they like fly
Get
the
married.
coop and whatever and get married and all that. Except we don't have any of the generational wealth
Well,
aspect
there's
of
no
that.
wealth.
We're
Because they
just all
accumulate your
trying
money
to survive.
yeah. Everybody's trying to survive.
Yeah.
Instead of like, hey, you accumulate your money now, and then while you're living here, you accumulate your money, and then you buy properties and you do the same thing.
Yep.
So they've got that down, that passing on the generational wealth.
Mm.
They've got that down packed. So lots of research, and I love how it's so in an outlandish way, because it's so over the top. Like the amounts of money when we're talking about millions and billions of dollars is so
it's like
much.
a satire.
Yeah, exactly. And everyone's in real estate. They were talking about trading real estate the way that, we talk about, like, I don't know, like buying little things like, oh yeah, I got this yesterday and I bought that. They're like, I bought a penthouse yesterday. And then that house that I bought over by the beach, oh, in 5 years, I'm going to double my profits on that and sell it. It's just
The $1 million earrings.
Well,
Oh my
Yeah.
god,
That's
the
the-
earrings.
yeah.
Yeah. The
well,
shoes just
but
like-
that's the place in Singapore. There's limited land, just like in England. There's limited land. Like land is the currency, just about, and so it's going to always hold value.
Yep.
Whereas there's other countries that are much bigger and have more developed and undeveloped areas. So
Yep.
Yeah, we get excited about stationery. We're like, we
I
got a
know.
pen. We got a cool pen. And they're like, no, we got a
I still
$5
get
million
excited about stationery. Maybe that's because we're writers, though, because my thing is G3
Yeah.
Pilot, 0.38 millimeter wide. I'm very serious about my pens.
No, I'm a
Either way.
0.5 girl. I'm a 0.5 girl, and I'm like, I like
Yes.
a 0.5 or a 0.4. I'm like in between those two.
Yeah, I like
I
the
nice
0.38.
0.5.
Nice.
But if I'm doing a fancy font, give me a nice wide.
Mm.
We digress. Okay, so are we done with the book?
Yes, let's get into the movie. Dislikes, neutrals, likes, and loves. Is there anybody who did not finish the movie? Like they were like, on finishing the movie.
It's only 2
All right.
hours.
Yeah,
Less.
but we have had some movies that were struggles to get through, so you never know. Anybody dislike on the movie? Neutral on the movie? Like on the movie? Love on the movie? I'm a like to love on the movie. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Got a kick out of it.
I
There
still
were parts
poo at
that
the
I just
ending. I've seen it so many times, and I'm still like,
I know.
So this
It's
is going to make me
so
sound heartless, but I would be a love if they cut off the last 10 minutes of the movie. Like everything after the Mahjong game.
very interesting, especially when you think about
it
how
is a
the game
cliche.
ended.
Airplanes are cliches, I will say.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
I'm a like to love. I mostly loved it. I enjoyed it so much. I had a good time watching it again. But there were some parts where I was just like, it's this is so over top. But it's supposed to be. And
Yeah.
that's why I tell myself it's supposed to be. Let it be what it is.
And it made fun of the book. Like it fixed all the issues. It fixed so many issues I had with the book, and it made fun of the book by doing it. So
Yes. All right. So let's get into it. Now that we found out where we are. Thoughts on the movie. All right, again, there will be some spoilers. We're going to try to keep them to a minimum, but no promises. So I enjoyed this a lot. I again, the opening, we're in 1995 this time with the opening for the movie, and I like that. It's that Pretty Woman moment where it's
big mistake. Huge.
big mistake.
Yes.
Huge.
Love that.
Love that. It's that moment, but in a more serious way, because here we are, we've got two women with children who are, the racism is real, and it's just like so not cool.
yes.
You know, this, no matter what we think about their money and their privilege, that's not cool. That's not cool. You know, so great opening. So movie starts out with a thumbs up from me. They get, and Michelle Yeoh, I love her so much. She's fantastic. I will watch her in anything. It could be the cheesiest movie if she's going to be in it. I'm like, I'm watching it. I just want to see more of her. She's fantastic. And she was great here, and we get to meet and see our little Nikki and our little Astrid. It's such a cool way to open and let you know who these people are. You learn a lot about these people in a very, very quick moment. You know, when the guy comes down out of the elevator and he's just like, the two guys think that he's heading their way, and he gets straight for Eleanor and is like embracing her and like just excited to see her, and they're just like jaw dropped. That visual is golden.
Although, slight counterpoint, I agree with everything in that the hotel is wrong in the racism, but at the same time, there were 3 adults there and their kids are acting up.
And they were wet, and they were tired, and they'd been traveling.
I've been in that situation, and it only takes one person to go up to the front counter, and there are 2 adults there to smack the kid when they're acting up. Like I've been, don't actually hit your kids, but like I've been in that scenario, and when I was the kid acting up, like grandparents were there to just be like, "Yo, stop right now," or like.
But we are talking about kids who grow up to be very spoiled and get what they want.
Hello. That's where the privilege does come in, because you can use the excuse they're all exhausted. These kids, that they've probably been traveling, they just want to play a little bit. They're muddy. This is the situation. But yeah, you could be like, stop that. And they didn't even get.
Not even stop that. Just turn and glare and like.
My mom just had to
I
give
bet
a
they
look.
have the glare.
the point, the look, and the
look,
and the kid knows. But these are privileged people.
Lips.
These are privileged people, so they don't know.
But
to them,
that could have been done. But I will say the introduction, there was a lot of showing real quick, like spanning to each of the families, like seeing the look, we're the perfect family. Okay, nannies go. I gotta go do this after the picture's taken. Like the showing was what I loved about the.
How did you all feel about Astrid's introduction, though? When she's in the hotel and there's like the kid crying, and Astrid just walks up like an angel and like pets the kid on the head.
It was very campy, and I was kind of here for it, just because of the way
That was a red
way
flag
that,
for me.
yeah, the way that the
Like,
rest of the movie played out. I was
that's
like,
how someone who
okay,
steals children would act.
yeah. But I think they know who she is. She's like, they're like, ooh, and it is almost like she's this angelic thing that comes
Yeah.
through, like almost not even real.
Yeah, but they're
But the way
random
that,
guests, and this is a woman that they wouldn't know. Like, I just go into a hotel. I wouldn't know who owns the hotel. Somebody's just, walking up and
yeah,
like,
I
I don't
guess
know.
to
so
like display how starstruck her like appearance is and how you
yeah,
get sucked
she's like,
into.
oh,
They're trying to make her seem so ethereal and her beauty
Right.
to be so like jaw
And going back,
dropping.
it was definitely over the
going
top.
back to my
But
last, like the point I said earlier, there's like a fine line between being creepy stalker and rich billionaire, and it has to do with like how
Well,
it is weird to just go up to someone's child and be like, hello, child. Is
yeah,
this your-"
but there was a comedian who brought up of like the difference between a guy and a girl, or woman and a man approaching kids, and
True.
like a girl going, "Oh, aren't she just the cutest little thing? Oh, I'll come back when you're 18." If a guy said that, people would be flipping out. I'll come back.
He's
when
getting
you're 18.
tased.
Yes.
The guy comes up to my kid, he's getting tased. I'm like, who are you?
But it
Taste
brought an
first.
excellent point. I forget the comedian, but it was an excellent point of the whole deal. And I'm just, I can see the creepy side of it.
Yes, absolutely.
Hmm.
And she's actually quite stunning. So it just like it played all into
Casting
that.
was perfect, I will say.
Right.
Like, I don't think there was
Right.
any person that I felt was miscast, and it was diverse. It was beautifully done, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Also,
Yeah.
though, I don't know the ethnicity of all the actors and actresses either, though.
Yeah, I think they're mostly all Chinese and Korean for the most part. So yeah, I don't know all of their ethnicities either. But yeah, I went with it when I was watching the movie for the first time. I was just like, okay, we're going here with when we meet Astrid, when we see who is it? Is it Eleanor? Who is with the ones with the family? The family photo, the picture perfect.
Edison and Fiona, I believe.
Edison. I knew it was an E one. Yeah, like yes, Fee.
Eddie.
Yeah, the picture perfectness is so over the top. And then when you're meeting the Gossip Girl chain, like this is why I was like, okay, this is where we're going. Where the text messages, and mom knows what's going on just from the chain of messages before Nick even has a chance to tell her. She goes, "Oh, I know she's coming. And where will she be staying?"
Yeah, but they've been dating a year too. Like,
Wild.
He definitely has a fear of his family and a fear of confrontation with them, I think, or something. Because
But
he
at the
had
same
a
time, he doesn't do anything to prepare them or her. Like those are.
No, he needs some work.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is one where I don't know if it's cultural. Like he's not going. Like he literally seems like he leaves it to Rachel. Like I'm just gonna make sure Rachel and mom or Rachel and aunties are in the situation, and I'm just gonna kind of leave it to them. Even when he sees things that might be a little okay, I think she's trying to say something. He doesn't interject at that moment. He might in the movie he'll say something to Rachel after and be like, "Oh, mom doesn't mean anything. She's just testing you." Because when they were making the dumplings and she sees the ring, and then mom just goes into this whole other thing about how the families stick together and work hard and how we sacrifice and she said you may not, and when she said you know how we use the general you as in people, but when she says you may not appreciate, she looks over to Rachel, like Rachel never said she didn't appreciate the tradition, but she targets her when she's talking about how this tradition is because of our sacrifice, because we don't put our own selfish needs before the needs of the family. And she looks at Rachel after Rachel has gone through this whole, this is wonderful. I think this is beautiful. I wish I'd have had this. I'm like, that was rude. And then Nick just kind of looks at her and smiles a little like,
Mm.
I'd have been like, dude, say something. Like Rachel,
Yeah.
you could say something simple like Rachel appreciates it. She just said she did, you know, just something, but he doesn't say anything till I'm just like, whatever.
His character acts oblivious a lot.
Yes.
To a lot of things that is a little annoying. It's happened in the book.
Because at a certain point, when especially getting married, but you kind of want to see these signs before marriage. At a certain point, the family transitions from the nuclear family you grew up in to your new family that you're building with your significant other. And at a certain point, you have to have those lines and stuff. Sometimes you're starting new traditions. Sometimes you're carrying traditions that you grew up with that you want to carry on. But I've always had issues with people saying like, oh, you're marrying your in-laws too. No, we don't have to.
No, we don't have
There's
to.
no law that says you got to.
It's like, because we can move far, far away if they don't know how to behave. Yep. Any other thoughts on the movie before we start really getting into comparing?
There was actually a love story.
World building. Yeah, there's actual love story focused on stuff. We didn't get as much detail on the other characters. Like Astrid's story, especially further in the books, like I really got invested in. I remember actually more than Rachel and Nick's. But I still feel the world building was perfect. Like there's people who are actually in that Singapore like rich world, and they're like, oh yeah, they hit the nail on the head. This is what it's like what just the extravagant parties, just buying stuff just because. So yeah, it's I found that interesting. So I thought the world building was good. I thought the casting was great. The like just silent side eye faces and stuff made like was spot on. The clothing was spot on.
Visually,
in my opinion.
it was beautiful.
It was so gorgeous. And then just like the script, I feel like not the script itself, but more of the scenes of the non-verbals of the actors showed very well. And I feel like that carried more weight than even what was said. And so I think that's why I became to a love. And then some of the changes they made, we'll cover that in a little bit, that they made of adding stuff in that probably wasn't in until a future book. I thought that was actually done nicely, because movie stories versus books that you want them to end differently. You can't usually have a book ending. And maybe that's where, Ben, you were hung up on with the movie. You're like, it could have ended here, but that's more in line with the book.
Yeah. I feel like because there are 3 books, there's more to come, so that the way that they end it, you get your happily for now with the book. But when you're doing the movie and you don't know if you're ever going to do anything after, you're going to want to give them more of a happily ever after ending versus a happily for now, because we may never get another Crazy Rich Asians or whatever.
At this point, I assume we wouldn't, because the movie came out 5 years ago.
It's been a while.
Yes. So they need to give you that ATA, that happily ever after, versus just the happily for now. So I accept that. And so since we're going to be talking about a little bit from book to movie, I remember because I saw the movie first. So when I'm reading the book, I literally thought that there was going to be more. I was like, wait, that's where we ended. I was waiting for the proposal. Literally. So I'm like, whoa.
Wait, what? That because again, I DNF. No, that's fine. I don't. It does no. Tell me everything. I don't care.
Yeah, there's no proposal in the book. That's in book 2, I believe.
More than so. In the movie, he gets so there's the whole disaster, and the mother and Rachel are planning to leave. They're on the flight in the movie. They're on the flight home. They're getting on the flight home, and Nick gets on that flight. And I had this exact same conversation, which is that is the action of a creepy stalker, because that means that he had to have bought a ticket for that flight to get onto the airplane. in order to then in the aisle, like he's helping people. He's of course being like a perfect
It's so
gentleman because
funny.
there's this woman who's like struggling to get her luggage to the overhead thing, and he's like, let me help you out with that. And then he helps her to her seat, and while he's trying to like talk to Rachel and be like, I know I messed up, but by the way, like let's get married and all this other things. And of course there's everyone else on the flight who's like, just marry him already, blah blah blah. And I'm like, no, that is the actions of a creepy stalker. Like, yes, he has money, yes, he's attractive, but like everything about that is just red flags in my head. And yeah, I know it works in a hyper I don't know, over the top movie, but at the same time, like if that ever happened in real life, you run.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it
So,
also depends on the
do you
type of person.
prefer the
There's some
book
people who
ending for
actually
not
want.
going there? I was going to ask Ben really quick. So you prefer the book
Okay.
ending for not actually going there with it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think that's a much stronger
actually
ending
learned.
because Rachel got like the
That
comeuppance
makes sense.
over the mother and says, you know, she basically beat the mother, and then she's like, well, you know, now you're going to get your happily ever after, and when you have grandkids, like you should be thanking me because there'll be these specific people that you want them to be, and you know that may not be what Nick wants, that might not be what I want, but like I'm walking away because, you know, that's my decision.
Yeah.
I love
I
the flex.
You love the
There.
what?
The flex during the monologue of
Oh,
I
yes.
don't even know if I said it correctly, but of just like I turned him down when he proposed. So just remember that when he gets married later and everything, it's not because you won. It's because I made the decision for him to not choose me over his family because I believe it's better to have both and stuff like that. And I was like, sing, yes.
Yeah. I felt like it felt like the movie moved along faster, but it actually didn't, because I was like, before we get to like the bachelorette party and all that stuff, I looked at the audiobook and I'm like, we're like 45% of the book in. This took so long to get here.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the same amount. Oh, we lost Des. Hopefully we'll get her back. But we were at the same point in the movie, but because the scenes were so like they pick and choose their scenes really, really well. So it did not feel like we were halfway through the book before the really exciting stuff started happening. I was like, that was well done. But yeah, when I was reading the book, I was like, oh my goodness, more characters. Here we go. But it seemed like it went so quickly in the movie that I literally thought, wasn't this at the beginning of the movie? It wasn't. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It was still paced towards the stuff started going down towards
They just
the middle
cut
of the movie.
by focusing on Rachel and Nick. They were able to cut out a lot.
And they didn't include all the details on all the extended family members. It had the key ones, and like Nick sort of ran through them really briefly, but it didn't include everyone.
Yeah.
And in fact, I kind of sorry.
Go ahead, Ben.
I was going to say, based on the way the book was written, I was amazed that there wasn't like this Terminator vision that would come on everybody's whenever like somebody's face was flashed on screen. It would be like a printout right next to them of how much they were worth and like what their money comes in, whether new money, old money. Like, I'm glad that they didn't do that, but based on the book, I figured that was how it was going to be, because that's how the book is written, essentially.
Yeah, everyone's introduced with their net worth.
Yep. But it was done so cleverly and so quickly in the movie that I never really felt lost. I felt like, okay, we're going to get a bunch of people, but I didn't, because we weren't necessarily in all these people's head. We were just like, here's the twins, here's this person, here's that person. And it was just like, boom, 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 you know, when we were meeting everybody. I really liked what they did with the Go family. They were a little over the top in the book, but they were way over the top in the movie, and I just thought they were so much fun. I absolutely loved them.
But they still knew that they helped Rachel, and they're like, "Oh, honey, you cannot go just like that." Like,
yep.
And that's one of the best scenes of the movie was the dress shopping scene.
Yep. It was that another fun montage. The movie did so many things like so well. Where the dad, who's a little very over the top, is trying to like throw out outfits.
That was the one. That was the like it was such a rare occasion for me to be like, I liked the movie better, which I never thought I would ever utter. That the movie was ever better than the book.
It's happened here a few times.
I imagine for you guys, yeah. The movie was just, it did everything that you wanted the book to do. It did it right. And I don't,
It showed really well. And even with the proposal at the end, this is the reason I do, is just, it's
That's
that
fair.
nonverbal of when he opens the ring, it's Eleanor's ring. And I'm like, yes, like it, because she walks away thinking, Rachel walks away thinking, it's over, it's done, it's in the past and everything. And yes, stalker-nish aside or whatever of him coming back, which, by the way, here's a counter argument. He could have been their planned flight back or something already. Just throwing that out, because
That is fair.
because it was only supposed to be for like 2 weeks in the movie versus it was the whole summer in the book or something like that. So throwing that out there. But either way, so how much it says by Eleanor's ring being in there after the mic drop moment, to me, it's those nonverbals that I love. Like, and just but also part of me, I will say, I want to learn more about Mahjong, because I'm assuming there's something significant about the hands they flip over and everything. I'm assuming Rachel's hand beats out Eleanor's in this situation. But either way.
Yeah.
I thought the movie was well, and it also, it put pictures, names with faces. It put like the world was this rich, like, just chaos of
The wedding,
money being, and everything, like
that wedding,
just insane. And then multiple personalities, I will say, of like just characters upon characters, and then still, at least they still had normal people. Like Astrid was normal.
Yes.
And
But
Nick was
levity.
normal, Rachel was normal. Yeah, and I would even say Eleanor was normal. She just was kind of balancing this. And I did like depicting the struggle of Grandma still dissing Eleanor, even though she'd been married for God knows how many years and stuff. And
that was a very small moment, but it was
like, I found that interesting, that even like, you're almost like you could be married and still not accepted. But that's a thing we brought up before about like Michael too.
Yeah.
It was you still don't make a W right after all these years or something along those lines.
Yeah. It was a good way to show, because they did tone down Michael's story. It's a good way to still show that this is a running theme, that even if you have the money and you've got it all, if you're not the tip top of even that tip top, you're less than. I did appreciate, after the fact, that richer story that we got with Michael and Astrid, or am I getting my couples right?
Yeah,
no, that's correct.
And then also that we get a richer story in, like, there's a guy that she like winks at the end, but this guy actually, it's what Ben was talking about. She has an ex that she could have married, but they broke up very naturally, and then she met Michael. This guy maybe thought that they might have had time to get back together, but she ends up meeting Michael and marrying Michael. And so there's a whole story with this guy. Is his name Charlie? I think
Charlie.
his name is, yeah. And you get so much about Charlie, and then what Charlie does to help Michael become the man. I'm like, I almost wonder, because I haven't read further in the book, like the book series. So I'm like, is he going to turn Michael into one of these terrible people?
That's exactly what I was thinking too. Is like, that's how you became,
to make him feel better about himself.
But Michael doesn't know, so he's going to think that he's a self-made billionaire or whatever, which means he's going to grow he's already proven to be incredibly selfish, incredibly delusional, and you throw the fact that he now thinks that he is, he earned it rightfully. Like, that is the recipe for his current relationship to end very, like, that's the relationship for him to actually start cheating on his wife. Like, that is exactly what I would anticipate would happen in the future books.
Yeah, because they've already established that these guys, that's what they do. So he's actually not that guy, but they're going to turn him into that guy by basically handing him his billions on a silver platter without him knowing it. So like Ben said, he's going to think that he did it himself. So that, to me, I'm like, that ego is going to grow. And I don't know. I haven't read book 2 and 3, but I don't know what's going to happen to our.
And they described when they got when you got more details on Michael, he has a tendency of wanting to prove himself and prove statistics and people wrong, which is even why he gave Astrid a chance in the first place, because his friend was like, yeah, can you, and he was like she's out of your league, and that pissed him off. He was like, no, I'll prove to you that I can, get her attention or whatever. So if he thinks that he has now suddenly all this money and stuff, and that he's now put like a hierarchy in the system, he has a tendency to then want to prove people wrong and then overdo himself. And so I can see it going very poorly.
Yeah.
So Regina asked the question, were there any dogs in the movie? Didn't somebody have a dog? I thought there was somebody who had carried around a dog in a little purse or something. Not a main character, but one of the sides. I don't remember.
Yeah, now I don't
remember. I would be surprised if they did. There wasn't.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I may have missed this, but I don't know.
I can't remember. It definitely wasn't any of the important characters or anything like that. I think it might have just been a blink and you miss it moment with somebody having a dog in a purse.
I will say, sadly, the book frustrated me so much that I didn't end up rewatching the movie because I was just so frustrated. I was like, I don't even want to see the movie again, even though I love the movie. But I was so.
The movie is really.
I want to stay in my love bubble. There have been things that upon rewatching, I was like, oh, this did not age. Very well. What is the one that we watched? It was
Princess Bride had a few moments in there.
Yeah, there were a few in Princess Bride, but it wasn't enough to knock it down. It was when we were doing the Jane Austen one, and it's
Sandition?
No. The other we did the 90s one that I absolutely love.
Emma.
Yeah, when we were doing Emma. So we watched Clueless, and I was like, oh, I should have maybe not watched this again, but I'm like, I'm gonna hang out to my nostalgia. my place of 90s nostalgic love for Clueless, because some of those things did not age.
Really, I haven't seen it in over a decade for sure.
Did they say that? Did we actually laugh at that? So there are sometimes things that, and the book is, I think, maybe 10 or 15 years older than the movie, I think, roughly. Like I said, the book starts out in 1985 when they're kids, but the movie, it's 1995. So they did push it about 10 years to make it more modern. So it kind of lets you know that the book is probably written in that time where some things were maybe a little bit
I think the book
still funny before we were like, no, that's not really funny to some of us. And that goes back to some of the things that were said at the bachelor party where I was like, oh, cringe. I love that they changed the bachelor party.
Yep, that's one of the things they made fun of, actually, is Bernard going, oh, well, what do you, they arrive at the boat in International Waters and oh, well, what do you expect? Would there be just drugs and dog play and all this other stuff? To say that's completely ridiculous to even think of.
That was so awful. Yes, yes. And it's that was that. I didn't get it when I watched the movie the first time because I was like, oh, that would be ridiculous. Oh, no, you're like, I was like, and then literally I was like, drugs and dog fighting. What? I was like, that would not be a fun party. That'd be the worst. And then it's in the book, and I'm like, are we serious? This is what we're doing. So yeah, so and then when I watched the movie again, I'm like, there it is. Yes, I was like, they didn't do that actually, right? I'm like, did I miss that? Because that's not something I would have missed. So it was a complete change, and it was just the callback to it. That what do you think were going to happen? But the bachelor party was still rude, and the characters were still rude enough to get it across that these guys are jerks, you know. The way that they talk about Rachel right in front of Nick's face. I'm just like, like, what does she bring? Because she's got no money. And the guy is talking about her body and where, in his opinion, she's lacking. And I'm like, yeah, Nick, get up and knock him out. You know?
Something.
Just like, ugh. I was like, But this is your friend. And this is your friend, or friend. This is your friend and your friend's girlfriend that he's telling everybody that he loves this girl, and you're just gonna talk about her like that in front of his face. So the bachelor party still portrayed some of these guys as being the jerks that they were in the book. So
and completely irresponsible also, with a rocket launcher.
Just shooting it off.
It's international waters. It's fine.
No, that's not okay. But also still be able to let us know that Nick and Colin are not into this. They're like, yeah, no, this is not for us. They're like, we're gonna get you to get a massage, and Colin's like, no, you're not. Not happening. Any other thoughts on the world building characters? I think we all said that we loved the casting on this. Was everybody like very
cool? It was really well done. Yeah, really well done.
And execution, I think that the excessive scenes that were left out, even though I did like where they went with Rachel's story and just the in-depth that they went in with Astrid's story. Even though I did appreciate reading them in the book, I'm glad that they nipped some of that. Like the ending in the movie happens very quickly in comparison to like when Rachel finds out the truth about her family. There's a lot that goes on after that point. And just really showing how absolutely devastated she is. But the movie did a good job with the more limited story that they put in portraying that she's devastated. She did not know, all of this stuff, because that was the other thing, is that Eleanor was just convinced that she knew, and that she's just trying to, barge her way into this family and just like destroy us with this huge scandal.
Right.
And so they cinched that up nicely. So the execution, I think, was done really well. And it's one of those things, had I not read the book, I would have never known it was missing. Same thing with Astrid's story, with Michael. Had I not read the book, I would not have known that there was this extra layer. But I was okay with it because what we got in the movie worked.
So much better.
Yeah.
Yes. Sophie, don't remember seeing you in the movie. Because it's Astrid who's with Rachel when with the whole bloody fish incident.
They just simplified it down.
Yeah. So I mean it worked, like where they chose to, because it was so many characters. I'm like, do we need all these characters? Do we really? There's a lot of characters in the book.
Too many.
So many.
He's your puppy. All
right.
The reason I ran off is because she just had a seizure, by the way.
Oh, is she okay?
Is she okay?
She's better now. She's just whining a lot. She gets them a lot. The last one, I need to document this because I'm trying to keep track. The last one she had was in September. So
is it just from stress or anything like that, or
could be? Don't know. It's just a once in a blue moon. Like, got no clue how it happens and stuff. And her eye was giving her issues since October, and so we ended up having to have that eye taken out. So she's still healing from that. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Then we moved up on
Yeah. Well, if you need to go off camera to give her all the loves and hugs and cuddles, you're more absolutely give her whatever she wants.
That's usually how it happens. I just pet her and try to get her to stop whining.
Yeah. Poor thing. I hope she's okay. That's for sure. I also get very distracted by people petting dogs because I think it's the cutest thing. Okay.
Lilo actually pops in my lap and everything, which she's underneath the desk. So it's always harder because Lilo tries to when Stitch has her seizure, she grips Stitch by the neck and tries to wake her up or something. Mm-hmm. I don't know what Lilo's thing. I mean, she doesn't puncture or anything. It's just slobber there afterwards.
Yeah. Wake up! Are you okay? Yeah. She's trying to make sure it's okay. All right, we are almost done. So, you guys want to go through what your best and worst changes are? I can do mine really quick. I love the changes that were made to the Go family, Paquin, and her family. I just let them be just hilarious and over the top. I thought that was great. Yes. The bachelor party change. Thank you. Thank you
yes. To cut out some extreme legal stuff.
Yes. I'm like, there's no way I don't want to see that. So for me, those are the best changes. Was there a worst change? I didn't write one down. I wrote down a bunch of changes, but I'm kind of neutral on a lot of them.
I really wanted more Astrid and such, but I approve of the focus of Rachel and Nick in the movie.
Yeah. I agree.
Go ahead, Ben.
I was going to say I think that everything is the best change from the book, and that it focused on the Nick and Rachel love story. There's the one where they're in the market and they're all eating and having fun with the bride and the fiance and groom or whatever, the soon to be married couple, and it was just fun seeing them interacting together. I also like that the book cut out the mystery.
They weren't showy at the beginning in the market, but then once the wedding started, I'm like, oh god, showy.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just a group of 4 friends having fun together. It actually seemed like they enjoyed being with each other, and you could actually feel like, yes, Nick and Rachel could actually be to the point where they, propose or along those lines. Let me think. Astrid.
Sorry. Really quick. Hang on to that thought, because I want to say, on that point, I think that is even more of a setup for Rachel, because that's her first experience there. Is she's meeting these people who are also uber rich, but they're so relatable. So I feel like when she walked into the rest of it, she was really blindsided because she's already nervous, not knowing what to expect, and then the first 2 people that she meet are 2 of the most grounded rich people. And they have this wonderful time. So that by the next few days or however much time goes by, when she meets the rest of them, she's just like, this really not expecting it. So go ahead, Ben. But
I was going to say, I really liked Astrid's comeuppance moment in that she calls Mike a coward because he was actually cheating on her, and she has that moment where she realizes what she wants to be, and so she unhides all of her jewelry and she sets it out and she starts wearing it, and she has this real realization of who she wants to be, and that she realized that yes, Michael was uncomfortable around her, but she was also kind of holding herself back, and so moving forward, she's now a better person, which is really positive for her as a character, I think.
Yeah.
For me, a lot of it, the best changes were everything that I was like, I'm so happy that they went the route that they went with and took all the good parts and emphasized on them and really put it together in a beautifully packaged movie. And then because at this point, the worst was just the book experience for me, unfortunately.
I could have used some explanation of the isms and such. So
that was the one thing that I find interesting that you said about the audiobook, was that the audiobook immediately gives you the translation of certain things, because the reality is that by the time I got to the end of the chapter, I had no interest to now go back and compare what was which and where went. So I would skip those parts, but obviously then I would lose big like understanding of just the different language and the culture and stuff. So it would have been nice to have those little asterisks happen there on the page instead of waiting till the end of the chapter to then try to flip through and compare.
Yes.
Yeah.
What about you, Natalie? Besides the things that we already chit-chatted about.
I mean,
changes.
Yeah, I still think the changes were good. I know Ben said the last 10 minutes was what could have been cut, and I could see your point, but I think for the moviegoers who may have not read the book or even realized it was a book, having this like romantic comedy movie, you need the closure at the end.
I understand.
Yeah. And so for the market, yeah, I'm fine with it, especially because it would be different if it was like a standalone book and there was never a proposal. I'd be like, what the hell, really? But the fact that I've read the others and I know what happens, I'm like, all right, fine. You can go a little out of order. I mean, they're doing a little out of order with Shadow and Bone, you know.
Yeah,
true.
Wheel of Time also is kind of all over the place. So it's like, if you want it straight, some of these things, if you want it straight by the book, you're not necessarily going to get it. So it's like, take what you have and do you enjoy what you're actually seeing?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it is going to be someone's interpretation. An adaptation is not, an exact, All right, let's go with our final thoughts. Who wants
watch
to
the movie first? If you're gonna read the book, still watch the movie first, just because it will help you keep people apart.
True.
Totally agree. There's a lot of people, and it's helpful to know who's important and who's not important. It had been so long since I saw the movie and it was hard enough to remember who the people were when you're watching it. Still a lot of characters, even in the movie, that I literally was jotting down people's name because I'm thinking, are we getting backstory on someone that we are going to see later? I couldn't remember. So I'm like, let me jot this name down. And only to find out that no, not really necessarily.
Well, or it's a backstory for a person who actually is prominent, but it's like their grandparents, so you know the generation and stuff almost.
Yes, a lot of that. And then there's other people's backstories that you are going to get when you read the book, but I feel like it's better to know the characters. I think I'm usually a either or when it comes to reading the book first or watching the movie. This one, I'm like, I'm with you, Natalie. Watch the movie first.
I think we said the same thing with Good Omens. Like, watch the show first because it's just so many characters.
Yeah, a lot going on. But I feel like you expect it kind of when you're doing sci-fi and supernatural and fantasy. You kind of expect this was a contemporary. It's a lot of characters for a contemporary. Anybody else final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I really like the movie. My thoughts on the book are kind of already out there. I do want to say one last thing about that proposal scene in the movie is that he's talking about how he wants to propose on the plane because his original plan was to go to like this secluded place that only is a remote location. But if you know in the book that if he went there, it would have his name and Amanda's name carved into the wood.
That's right.
And so I'm thinking like, oh, dude, you are not ready to propose if that's your idea. Like, you already screwed up with the family and you're already like, you have so many strikes against you that this shouldn't work out. So I do agree that the happy ending works. I teared up a little bit when it happened, and it was very, very like, it definitely is a much more, it's I don't know, a better ending, I guess, but I feel like it still would be a fulfilling ending for me to have ended it before the proposal. So
yeah. And I'm glad that we didn't get as much of the entanglements. We'll just leave them at that between Nick and some of these young ladies that he was involved with. And I like, there are a lot of things that I was just really, really cool with. I mean, Amanda, is it Amanda? And there's another one. Francesca, I think. Uh, like I'm okay with the toned downness. Like they really played that up in the book, that the whole family is trying to get Amanda here to be a spoiler for Rachel and Nick. And I don't know if they're thinking he's going to just see Amanda again and just like realize, oh, Amanda, she's the one because she's part of us. And I'm just going to forget about this woman that I dragged all the way here. So there are a lot of things that I'm like, this is better the way that they did it here.
Yeah.
But I didn't necessarily mind it in the book because it did add to the drama, So, but yeah, definitely enjoyed the movie here more than I did the book. But the good parts of the book, I was really, really interested in. Like the good parts, I was like, oh, okay, didn't know this, and was able to like kind of like dive into those parts. But some of it was just like so long, so many people, so many POVs.
Yeah, so many POVs.
Like it's a lot. Anybody else final thoughts?
I mean, I've pretty much made my my thoughts known. I definitely like Nick and Rachel better in the movie than in the book as well. I feel like they were better developed. Their personalities came through differently than in the book. In the book, like Ben was saying, there was also a lot of like Nick just made some bad choices. Just he wasn't as likable. And yeah.
I was going to say, and Rachel was comfortable telling Nick in the movie about the fish incident.
Yes. And in the book, it was just kind of like, oh, we're just going to let things go and move on. And no, those were big events. Those were big things that happened. Yeah. And then I agree that watching it, because visually it was just so beautiful. I don't think that I got the same impression from the book when it was described, like the wedding and things like that. So going in, having already watched it, at least you have that beautiful image in your head, because I don't feel like it's not described as luxurious. I don't know. It didn't come off. It didn't read the same to me personally. So
on that, I feel like if you haven't experienced it, there's only so many ways that the Kevin Kwan could tell us it's over the top. It's over the top. And you're like, okay, but what is over the top? You know what I mean? And then and so you have it in your head what this lavish thing might look like. Yeah. And you might picture the most lavish thing that you have experienced or that you can remember seeing. But then in the movie, they're like, no, you got to see this.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa.
I mean, the water trickling in, and this is just like this whole moment.
It's like, I can't really express to you. You've ever had those moments where you're trying to explain to somebody how outrageous something was. And then at some point you're like, no, you just had to be there.
Yeah.
You know, this is what that was like. It's like, no, you just have to see it.
And then go in.
You have to see the party on the boat. You know what I mean? Even though it wasn't a party on the boat in the book, but just the outlandishness of the richness.
Yes.
You know, trying to explain it for people who haven't lived it. It's just like, okay, a mansion in a secluded. No. Let me show you.
Though they did good about talking about like the whole Marie Antoinette meets Mad Hatter. That was like, okay, that was I could see that. That was pretty much accurately like explained.
Yes, everything is big.
Crazy it was, yeah.
So yeah, any other final thoughts? I want to make sure everybody gets their feelings and thoughts out there. All right, so we are good. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us for this. We get a lot of watches on the replays on these, so I will have them segmented out to help you guys as you watch the movie and read the book. Coming up, we have Shadow and Bone. I'm pretty much season 1 and 2, as much as season 1 and 2 as you can get through is what we're going to be chatting about. Probably first book of Six of Crows. So there's Six of Crows in Crooked Kingdom, just because season 2 starts integrating some of the things that happen in Six of Crows. And so you can get a good understanding of who these characters are. And then if you're going to read the books, definitely the first 2 books. Third book, if you really just want to wrap it up. But yeah, so basically we'll be going over Six of Crows to a limited degree, and then the first 2 books of Shadow and Bone. So it's Shadow and Bone and Siege of Storm. So if you guys want to read that, I believe Sarah Hoffman is going to try and join us for that one. And then the big one, July and August, Game of Thrones. I've not started this yet. I plan on starting it in June, and so we'll see how far I get. But I'm going to try my best to read up all of everything that there is, because I guess there's 1 or 2 books left to be written.
July
So
is just seasons 1 through 4, which is books
Yes.
1 through 3. I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the second half in August, if that helps everybody out. Although a lot of people have seen the seasons, so I'm just going to dot over what I've watched, but my focus is going to be reading the books more so than rewatching the show. So, but we'll see. I might just fly through the books and be like, no, I want to watch it all again. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm excited. And I will be chatting. We're hoping to get our good friend Adrian to come join us. He's very excited. So if we can make the times and dates work, then we will have Adrian join us for Game of Thrones. All right, guys. Let my co-host do some outros. They should be listed in the description. If they're not listed in the description yet, they will be after this is posted. Because I sometimes wait because I have to do the timestamp things. It's a thing. So sometimes I wait and just do it all at the same time. So I can't remember if I did the description or not yet, but I'm going to let everybody give you their outros, and you'll be able to find them down in the description below. Let's start with our guest, Des, and then Natalie and Ben, you guys can do your thing, and I'll wrap it up. Go ahead, Des, let everybody know who you are and where you can be found.
Hello, friends. Again, I'm Desiree M Ortega. You can find me on YouTube at Coffee Reading Writing. I post weekly videos there. I stream Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. And I'm also on Twitch. You can find me Tuesday through Saturday, twitch.tv/Desiree M Ortega.
Oh. She said there.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
okay. She said Natalie first.
She said we could go.
Fair enough.
She said with us, but I pointed to you, buddy.
Okay. I am Ben Pick. Every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, I am on YouTube as Running to Write. Tomorrow is actually all about how I'm preparing for Balticon, and next week will be my post up of Balticon, where I'll be selling my books in person for the first time.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm Natalie Locke. I'm a full-time employee, full-time mother as well, I guess, and and someone who thought writing and being a dog mom would impede the sleep more so, because as if it wasn't already. I usually do flash fiction on the weekends with my streamer of Chandra Arthur, but I've been moving. She's had her own stuff, so that will be starting again at some point. Just follow us on Instagram. And if you need to find my Instagram, you can go to my website, natalielockbooks.com, and it links to all my social media.
Excellent. And there was one I wanted to get, one comment I wanted to post. If you want to read about some nicer billionaires, our good friend Regina Duke does write some wonderful billionaires.
Yeah, none of this S&M billionaires or like nose
Louis.
up in the air, they're going to drown billionaires.
Yes, right. Thank you guys for coming. I'm Nia, the Vixen of Fiction. You can find me on the interwebs as such. I will be streaming in the evenings, Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. for Night Write, and I also stream on Twitch at 11 a.m. throughout the week. And next weekend, we are going to be doing Scripting the Book, where Des is one of my regular co-hosts. We're just going to chat about some things that have been happening in the writing and bookish community. And yeah, that's me. Thank you guys so much for coming. We're going to wrap this up, and we'll see you next time for Shadow and Bone, and we'll see you over the summer for some Game of Thrones. Bye, guys.